What's up, y'all? It's your boy JTMM, aka JustTenMoreMinutes, aka the Freakin 10, back again with another episode of Sabaton history. This one is Sarajevo. This is one I've actually, I was, as I listened to the song yesterday, I mean, instantly, I wanted to see the history. And I say that every week, and it's one of those things where I don't want to sound cliche with it. But truly, as I've said probably in every video, they just kind of draw you in. But this one specifically, just because of what it starts, the motivation behind it, what really was driving it, who did it. So many questions were popping into my head, and just because of the actual impact of it, I mean, it truly just pulled me in. So I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do Versailles on Monday. But yeah, this one has me extremely curious. And I appreciate y'all's being patient with me. I haven't posted as many videos this week as I normally do. Talking as much as I do in some of these videos does wind me. And with whatever I've got going on, sinus, chest, whatever, I get very winded. And it's almost painful. So I just appreciate it, just being a little bit more patient than usual. This one I think is going to be fascinating for me. So there may be a lot of pauses. I may ask questions that y'all have the answers to. But just be patient. Let's get to it.
I'm Indy Nidell.
I'm Per from Sabaton.
And Sabaton, their last two albums have been The Great War and The War to End All Wars. But the war to end all wars, Per, where did that war begin?
Sarajevo.
For decades, the Austro-Hungarian Empire had been a powerful influence in the heart of Europe. Resting on a legacy, their house kept stability, order, and peace. But not everyone bowed to this power.
Oh, I love that intro.
One shot that would change the world. One shot that did not just kill the heir apparent, but would ultimately lead to the downfall of four mighty empires, condemn millions to death and suffering, and destroy the old Europe of emperors and kings. This one shot was fired in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, and would become the symbolic cradle of the great calamities of the 20th century. One day, the great European war will come out of some damn foolish thing in the Balkans, Otto von Bismarck. On June 15, 1910, the Serbian student Bogdan Jerajic fired 5 shots at the governor of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Marijan Varisanen, before turning the revolver on himself. While public outrage condemned this assassination attempt as an act of madness, there was a radical underground that celebrated the shooter as a hero. This try at tyrannicide would spark a number of terrorist plots aimed against the ruling elite in the Balkans. Behind them were organizations like the Black Hand, Narodna Odbrana, Mlada Bosna, and several smaller splinter groups that promoted a radical stance for Southern Slav nationalism. Groups that had found their major enemy in the multinational Commonwealth of the Habsburg Empire. Okay, setting the stage. The Austro-Hungarian Empire long stood at the center of Europe's concert of great powers. The dual monarchy, ruling over a multinational empire of Austro-Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Slovaks, Slovenes, Croats, Serbs, Romanians, Ruthenians, Poles, and Italians, was, however, on the decline in a bunch of ways in the early 20th century. Many saw the empire's commonwealth as anachronistic, as a relic of a bygone age, much like its ancient 80-something emperor, Franz Joseph himself. Its future would soon, of course, be decided by his heir, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was a colorful person, to say the least, and you should Google him to learn more about his oddities, his animal massacring, and just do it, right? Anyhow, although he saw himself as an absolute ruler, politically he was a moderate, a reformer with great energy, and a semi-progressive vision for his empire. Rumors had it that he would form a tripartite empire, a federation that would strengthen the southern Slavs by perhaps putting Zagreb on the same level as Budapest. Franz Ferdinand also stood at odds with the expansionist war hawks like Army Chief of Staff Franz Conrad von Hotzendorf. To gather support for his political vision, Franz Ferdinand planned a visit to Sarajevo for late June 1914 to present himself to the Bosnian people. The empire had very controversially annexed Bosnia in 1908.
Okay.
Military attachés advised postponing or canceling the visit, thinking there could be violence. But those warnings went unheeded.
Okay, that makes sense.
France's moderate views were anathema to the radicals in Bosnia and in independent Serbia. Although in the clear minority, they were the most determined to overthrow or at least destabilize the region through domestic subversion. The emblem of the Black Hand showed the toolset of political assassination. Next to the obligatory skull and bones was a knife, a bomb, and a phial of poison. In underground camps, they trained their operatives in guerrilla warfare, espionage, marksmanship, and bomb throwing to act on their ire against Austrian rule in Bosnia.
Okay. So really, we're talking about an underground. I mean, I always try to relate things to today where I can, right? And you've got so many different groups out there that want to overthrow the government, that think what they're doing is wrong. So that's really, I mean, this was more a stance against the ruling of the empire than it was personal, I guess you could say, from the sense. I mean, yes, he was a representative of the empire, and as he said, saw himself as a leader. But I mean, yeah, he was just a pawn in a king's game. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I'm sitting here, and I the reason why I pause is, you know, you hear about all these different underground groups, and it being, you know, you had these the Black Hand, and you had the others that he mentioned that were, for all intents and purposes, underground gangs, right? They were militias. Nothing's changed. I mean, damn. The more things change, the more they stay the same. They're still the same type of groups across the world trying to do this to their governments. So not much has changed. That's fascinating to me. Let's keep going.
After the failure to kill Governor Varasanin in 1910, they first turned their eyes to his successor, Oskar Potiorek. But you know, why kill merely a governor if you could kill an archduke? And not only an archduke, but the direct heir to the throne of the Habsburg Empire. This would send a guaranteed ripple through the empire, if not Europe itself. The empire would not, could not, let such an act go unpunished. And if a vengeful Austro-Hungarian army marched against Belgrade, then Serbia and her Imperial Russian ally would be forced to act. And let's be clear, war had worked out well for Serbia in the years immediately before 1914. Serbia had done very well and gained lots of territory in the Balkan Wars. Okay, it was Europe's great folly at this time that it had deviated from a self-sustaining geopolitical ecosystem and turned towards a power block of alliances. And all through the early 20th century, Europe seemed to be haunted by crisis after crisis. The war in Libya, the annexation of Bosnia, the independence of Albania, the Morocco crises. It was just ratcheting up and up. So far, a major war among great powers had been avoided, but the balance was out of whack. Except for the German Empire, Austria-Hungary was politically isolated. Both Russia and France hoped to serve their own goals by backing and guaranteeing Serbian interests. Well, the French and the Russians were solid allies with each other, worried about German power in any case. And while the Russians were really more in it for themselves than for their Slavic brother Serbia, after their defeat at Japan's hands in 1905, the Tsar was determined to never again lose face internationally. So if something major would arise that led Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia, Russia would intervene on Serbia's behalf. Would this make Germany come to Austria's help in turn prompting France to go to war. But wait. If there was war between
Wow.
France and Germany, one would end up being the victor and much more powerful. So Britain would have to cast its lot with someone to be on the victor's side and keep the balance. But since the Kaiser had been contesting British naval supremacy, that someone would be France. But wait, what about Italy? Yeah, Italy had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary, but a defensive one. How would Italy react to all of this? Well, basically, Europe had allowed itself to chain its geopolitical future to the ever more unstable and volatile powder keg that was the Balkans.
Wow. That is a history lesson in itself. I'm trying to let that sink in because, yeah, that's a geopolitical nightmare, an absolute nightmare. As Indy just said, it's a powder keg. I mean, that is just waiting for that one little match strike just to go boom. Wow. I don't know if y'all find this as fascinating as I do, just because I as I said earlier, I look at and I compare these things to what's going on today. And it just seems like we're kind of in that same position from a global perspective. You know, you got China and Taiwan, you've got Russia and Ukraine, you know, you've got all of these different pieces that now globally, because of the alliances between everybody, that it's just waiting for that one little match strike that, because this person's friends with this person and this person's friends with that person, it's just going to ignite something. And I you know, they called this the war to end all wars. Not quite sure we're at the end of all wars yet. But this one, it makes 100% sense now as to that. And I guess it's not anything I'd ever looked into more than, you know, just a blatant ignorance of what went on. It's just not anything that I was ever taught. Wow. This is fascinating to me. Let's keep going.
To set the fuse to this powder keg, the Black Hand organized bombs and guns for its newest operatives. The ultra-nationalist milieu of Belgrade's coffee houses often attracted the attention of desperate, forlorn young men by propagating romantic visions of a greater good, of self-sacrifice for the sake of the motherland. Bosnian Serb Gavrilo Princip was one of them.
Seems like the
19 years
mafia.
old, Princip wanted to succeed where Zerajic had failed. But Europe was still at peace on Sunday, June 28, 1914.
In the summer of 1914, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of the Empire is visiting Sarajevo, unaware of the assassins awaiting him and what will come.
In the early morning hours, Imperial Archduke Franz Ferdinand arrived with his wife, Sophie Kotek von Hotkova, at the train station in Sarajevo. From there, they went by car down to the city hall via the Apple Key. There were 6 vehicles in the royal motorcade. The first car was boarded by the mayor of Sarajevo and the police commissioner, with the royal pair in the car right behind them. The car had the top rolled back so they could wave at the many onlookers and well-wishers that lined the streets in anticipation of their visit. The day of their arrival was unfortunate, though. It was St. Vitus Day, the day when, in 1389, Ottoman forces fought a Serbian army at Kosovo. The fighting itself was inconclusive, but it so depleted Serbian manpower that the Serbian Empire could not survive future fights with the Ottomans and soon fell fully under its sway. The choice of date was nothing more than an unlucky coincidence, but the ultra-nationalists saw it as a provocation. The terrorist cells of the Black Hand had been shadowing the preparations for the visit for several days, planning the best way to attack the well-known route. There were men positioned at intervals along the quay. If one of them would be intercepted and searched, another could take his place and fulfill the mission. Armed with loaded revolvers, each also carried a small bomb. These bombs were to be set via detonator caps and 12-second chemical fuses. Each assassin was also carrying a small paper of cyanide powder to kill themselves once the deed was done.
Wow.
the royal motorcade made its way towards Jumeirah Bridge. A first assassin prepared his bomb, but his nerves failed him. A second assassin, standing on the riverside of the quay, grabbed his bomb and broke the detonator cap with a loud bang. The royal car driver, seeing the bomb flying through the air, stepped on the gas. So the bomb bounced off the hood and rolled under the car behind them. The explosion wounded several officers and policemen, as well as a number of bystanders. Sophia was bleeding from the cheek, but otherwise, the royal pair was unharmed. The assassin swallowed his cyanide and threw himself off the bridge into 4 inches of water, and the cyanide only made him vomit. He was taken into custody. But confusion reigned as policemen surrounded the scene and the wounded were transported to the hospital. Was this a lone assassin, a madman, or were there others nearby?
I just have to stop that because even the greatest plans, which, I mean, the way they planned this, you know, and having the different splinter cells and operating to where one could take over is brilliant in a sense from a guerrilla warfare tactic. Make sure that you know what you're going to do. And wow. Enough cyanide just to make you throw up and you land in 4 inches of water. That would be a meme these days, and everybody knows it.
They moved on towards the town hall. As the general shock wore off, Franz Ferdinand flew into a rage at the mayor, but his wife brought back his composure. He addressed the Bosnian people, thanking them for their warm welcome. Then Potiorek proposed canceling the rest of the tour and driving straight back to the train station. But the Archduke wanted to visit the wounded in the hospital first. However, they did not tell the driver of their change of plans. As the car pulled into Franz Joseph Street, Potiorek yelled at the driver to stop and turn the other way. In a fateful chain of events, the car's engine was turned off right in front of a perplexed Gavrilo Princip. Couple of things here. There are many reports that the car had no reverse gear. This is false. The car, a 1910 Graf and Stift touring car, does have a reverse gear, but it takes a while to shift into it. Also, Princip was not standing in front of a delicatessen eating a sandwich. This is not only false, but it comes from the 21st century. Yep, there is not a single mention of it in any documentary source before 2003, not one, and certainly not in the transcript of Princip's trial. People didn't even eat sandwiches in Sarajevo in 1914. The only place it comes from before 2003 is a Brazilian novel called 12 Fingers, published in English in 2001, in which Gavrilo meets Dmitri, the book's hero, in front of Schiller's Market before the shooting and is eating a sandwich. But whatever he's doing, he's in the right place at the right time, or wrong place at the wrong time, depending how you look at it. And as the car moves towards him, he draws his revolver, and at point-blank range, he fires 2 fatal shots. One through the door of the car into the Duchess's abdomen. The second hits the Archduke in the neck. Blood pouring through his uniform, Franz Ferdinand loses consciousness after telling his wife to stay alive for the sake of their children. Princip is knocked to the ground before he can shoot himself. Outraged bystanders almost lynch him on the spot, but the police do apprehend him. Just after 11 a.m., the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Habsburg throne, is dead, along with his dreams of reforming the empire.
Wow.
The news of the assassination spreads quickly throughout Europe, not only in Vienna, but in Berlin, St. Petersburg, Paris, London, Budapest. Everyone in every cabinet knew that this could spark yet another crisis. It would prompt an investigation, a response, and likely an ultimatum. But no one could guess how far this one would go. And just over a month later, the old world was at war. In itself, the murder of a sovereign was not necessarily the reason for the outbreak of the Great War. There would have certainly been a crisis, there would have been consequences, but this time, The deadlock of alliances had fatally trapped its nations. Plans and timetables went into effect. Mobilization was answered with mobilization. An unstoppable machine was set into motion, and war soon raged all over Europe and then the world. The Serbian, Eastern, and Western fronts all opened up in the early days of the war, and the killing began. And here's something to think about in terms of killing. On August 22nd, 1914, on the Western Front, more than a dozen battles were simultaneously fought from Alsace to the Ardennes. The French had 27,000 of their soldiers killed on this one day.
Yep.
Not wounded, not missing, dead in one day. And that was just one of the warring nations. And this was not the end, but the very, very beginning.
You know, that's the part that gets me with this is just, it puts into perspective, you know, just how quickly things can go from being very tense to just all out war. And that's my biggest fear in our times today is, you know, you've got China and Taiwan, you've got Russia, Ukraine, because all it takes is, you know, whoever is successful is going to spark an outrage based on their geopolitical alignments. And at the same time, you know, where does this stop, right? Let's say, just hypothetically, China invades Taiwan. Who's right and who's wrong? I won't get into that because that's just up here for me. But it's more of, let's say that they're successful. Let's say Russia is successful in Ukraine. What stops these people from saying, okay, well, what's next, right? It's all about a power struggle, and that doesn't just stop there. If people are successful in war, it doesn't stop. What's the next one, right? For Russia, what's the next one? For China, what's the next one? That's the part that bothers me. Now, do I think that, you know, Russia, Ukraine's a different situation altogether, but, you know, China, Taiwan, with the geopolitical piece of it, that one to me is a ticking time bomb, and that's the one that scares me, quite honestly. And what it could set off. And, you know, it's fascinating to hear how this just based on, you know, all of the geopolitical alignments, what this triggered in the sense, you know, because we're talking 2 months later from the, you know, the August of 1914, from, you know, from late June of these battles already starting, and it worries me about today. It really, really does. Let's keep going.
Before I begin asking you questions and leading you in places you may not want to go, I got to say I love your jacket there. I love your coat.
Guess where it's from?
Do you want me to actually guess, or do you want to tell them where it's from?
I think you know.
Is this one of the ones that was used in the video for Christmas Truce?
No,
It's not.
but it's used in another Sabaton music video. Anybody can guess who?
I'm
a
not,
little
I'm
bit
not allowed
competition
to.
here.
Okay, that's a new competition. Okay, great new competition. Anybody can guess who. Okay, Sarajevo. Now, you did the Great War, but when you did the second album, now both Sarajevo and Versailles are on the War to End All Wars, which Sarajevo it's the flashpoint beginning. It's not the beginning. And Versailles isn't the end, although people think it is, but it's the end. It's one of the treaties. But why would you put the bookends on the second album, not the first album?
We did like the idea of creating this tie up to it. Obviously, we already had done the Great War and a lot of songs, and before that, we also had done other World War One songs. But we thought that this one would, be more bound together by a start and an ending.
Okay.
To have a more a concept feeling about it. And then I guess it has to start with Sarajevo.
And it's interesting that it's Sarajevo. It's not Franz Ferdinand. It's not Gavrilo Princip. It's not the shot heard around the world or anything. It's the town. It's the city.
Yeah, I guess it's a more like the people are, they think about that city when they think about the event.
This song is a different type of song as well for you guys.
Yeah, I had some idea when it was Joachim and Chris was working on it.
Yeah.
And I came and interrupted them and said, hey, what about we do it without the traditional format of you do a verse and then a pre-chorus and a chorus? Why don't we skip the verse and we do it with spoken words instead?
Yeah.
And I guess the guys liked the idea. And that's how it turned out. So we went back to the lady who was the voice of the Great War. Then we went back to her and asked if she could record a couple of lines for that song. And it kind of turned out the verse that way. It's a different type of song.
It is.
It's a different approach to
it's a different approach to write a song. But there's been a lot of people over the years who say that all the Sabaton songs sound the same.
Yeah, but that's bullshit.
Yeah, I have to agree too. I mean, you have now listened to all our songs by now.
Yeah, I really, I genuinely have. Well, I mean, I know a lot of you guys are like super fans out there, but I've listened to every single Sabaton song at least a few times to do the episodes.
And you have also read the lyrics about them and analyzed every song. So you know that they are definitely not the same. And you are also a musician. You are capable of playing them. And you probably also played several of them.
Yes, yeah.
So there we go. So you know that they are not the same. And I mean, here we show a different approach of how to write a song as well.
Now, that woman, what is her name?
Bethan.
And can we get a photo of her here? So tell us about her. How did you guys end up doing this collaboration?
We were searching on the internet and different talent agencies to find an actor, actress that would fit. We were looking for both male and female. We didn't know exactly what we were aiming for, but just something that sounded and captured powerful voice.
Well, I like that it's her voice is. It's got enough depth for a female voice, but without being overbearing, without being like bombastic. Mr. Sorry.
We found a couple of different alternatives, and we went through and we had some tests and we had some auditions, but ultimately it was so perfect when we found Bethan.
Has she ever worked with you guys live or doing anything with the shows? No. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. Maybe we do that someday.
Maybe we all do that someday. Maybe we have Indy Nidell and Bethan and Sabaton and you guys play a song. Just when everybody's excited for the next song, it's 2.5 minutes of me talking about the Valley of Death.
Well,
I have to pause there. Actually, you know what? I mean, there's a minute. Let me let it finish and then I'll get to my point.
Everything has a beginning.
Yeah.
And an end.
And this is the end of the song about the beginning.
Exactly.
Sarajevo. Well, say goodnight to all the nice people out there.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for watching Sabaton History Channel. Until next time, take care.
The Battle of the Frontiers starts in August as soldiers cross borders and bullets are fired in rage. War begins.
Oh. Love
Thanks
that
for
voice.
watching this episode of Sabaton History Channel. Please remember to click that little bell so that you get notifications the next time we release an episode, and then we will see each other in the future. Thank you.
All right, let me cancel this.
I'm Indy.
Okay. Sometimes I hit the button in time, sometimes I don't. So what I was going to say was this unique creation of a song is brilliant in the sense, and her voice is just perfect for it. if you really listen, I think I said it, you know, you got David Attenborough, I think he's the one that does all the nature. And it's almost that female version of it where that voice is just one that grips you that you just can't help but listen to. At least for me, that's really what it is. And it's just the right power. It's the right blend that just gets your attention. And what a way to do it. I mean, just we've seen bands, you know, like Nightwish will have it, you know, at the end. Or, you know, have a part at the beginning and then a part at the end. But to take the verses out and replace it with this spoken word and tell the story is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you know, as Indy says, it wasn't necessarily the true start. But obviously it's that, for all intent and purposes, it's that match strike that starts the fuse, right? Wrong place, wrong time. Man. Yeah, the more and more, and I said this, you know, I think yesterday, is really thinking about going to Indy's channel. I have to figure out where I can work that in. You know, my days are completely booked when it comes to how many videos I put out, you know, and obviously those I'd have to go look. I need to go look and see, and I'll do that this weekend on Indy's channel and see how long those episodes generally are to see where I can work those in. These episodes themselves are long enough. You know, I'm at 31 minutes right now. So when you think about that, it takes for me 30 minutes to record this, then the thumbnail, then the posting, then the text file. You know, it's 45 minutes to 55 minutes just to create this. Well, in a recording block of this, when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and have other songs to do that I do kind of the same thing, that's where the limited time comes in. So, you know, while yes, I'm able to put out a lot of videos, it's more of just the whole process. So I do want to see how long those episodes are, where I can work that in, because this actually has me truly fascinated in the sense that in listening to Sabaton now, I'm like, okay, teach me the true, not the true history, but just the in-depth type of history of what happened in each of these battles and all about the war. Because it's really got my attention. There's no other way to say it. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me with this one. This one was absolutely great. Versailles is next. As someone mentioned, you know, do them back to back. I just to do those in one day, that's difficult with my schedule. But I will do that. Versailles will come on Monday, and then of course the history on Tuesday. So in that sense, they'll be back to back as far as what I cover. But trying to do those both in one day is very, very difficult when it comes to my schedule. That being said, what a great episode. These guys just, what a great song. Just that beat. Dun, 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 dun. Man, that just gets your attention. Anyway, I could go on and on. Y'all know who I am and what I'm about. I'm JTMM. Like, subscribe, and share. I'm out.